And today, the other end. Something's missing. Okay, so we have adjusted these front shocks by filling them with the proper amount of fluid. We actually got some stiffness back in these. Next is to adjust this rear shock because the sag is just a little bit ridiculous. And we bottom out over the slightest bumps, but this shock, not that you can see it, is adjustable. So our plan is to drop this shock out and adjust it and put it back on, see what happens. So step one, as always, is to get the rear luggage rack off, get the seat off, and then maybe we can see the top of the shock, and we'll work from there. So we're gonna start with, ignore that. That's not a bolt on yours, I promise, but it's gonna be these 6mm Allens first, and then the 13mm bolts behind them. I may have lost an Allen bolt along the way, so I just replaced it with a 10mm. Luggage rack off, so I can probably clean under here, but also 13mm right there, and pop that seat off. Other side. Seat comes off. Now this is where it gets interesting because our rear shock is actually mounted way up here in the center of the bike. So the plan is to drop this bolt and the bolt on the bottom of the shock after the bike's on the stand and pull the shock out through the top, I guess. I don't know. We'll figure that part out. All right, so my awful plan is to get this thing perfectly neutrally balanced on the stand. And then as a safety, a rope to keep it from flopping completely back. Once we remove this wheel though, this thing should want to come forward. At the same time, we're gonna end up replacing the chain, so I'll show that too. Shameless advertisement. So we're removing the rear tire because I'm gonna redo this chain at the same time. So again, sockets on both sides, get the right size. I think it's 18mm. That's probably a 22 or something like that. I've got a 15/16 on there, it seems to grab. If you were tightening your chain, you just loosen it, and that would be enough. We're taking it all the way off. Remember how these go. Nut, nut, bolt. It's gonna be facing to the rear. Rear axle doesn't look too bad. With no adjuster in place, I can loosen the chain and just rip this wheel off. Don't forget your wheel spacer. That's gonna come out. It's gonna go back in like that. Brake caliper should come off. It's actually holding up my wheel at the moment, but that axle bolt is technically the front bolt of the brake caliper, and then it just sits in a ridge right here, so you can remove that. Use the speaker wire you've had since the 90s to secure this caliper so it's not just hanging on its brake line. Rear wheel off, chain dropped. A little easier than trying to break it while it's on the wheel. Sprocket is nasty, but apparently we've done good with our tensioning for 3,000 miles. We haven't really worn out the sprocket at all. All right, so we're removing the mud flap. Just ignore the hole. That's supposed to be there. That's totally normal. To Phillips head, we're gonna move it so we can actually get some torsion on the bottom nuts on this shock. So now we can see the bottom of the shock. It's got a little wishbone here. So we're not gonna remove the actual suspension. We're just gonna remove the shock here, which will let the swing arm kind of fold down, which is okay for now. I think we remove the bottom first. Thoughts? Prayers?
Well, what is this right here?
The bottom of the wishbone. But we just want to remove the shock. We don't want to remove the wishbone suspension here.
No.
No. Side quest, we're also going to check the air filter because we don't really know the best way to do this.
Right there.
So we're going to separate airbox, separate this, pull this apart, pull off this plastic. Maybe we get better access to actually...
Looks like kind of bolted underneath here. You're going to have to take this off.
Yeah, this I can get off easily. All right, removing a bunch of stuff, yep. So we got an 8, an Allen, Phillips head, and then this guy's gonna come off. Whoop! And then we're actually gonna take other stuff off. We'll let you know. All right, removing everything around the airbox. Another 8 here. I'm probably gonna...
Looks like there's something here.
Yep, so an 8 here. And maybe around the other side too.
Yeah, I don't
Don't forget
know.
your little grommets. The rubber's in there good. You ever just feel like you hate yourself and take the airbox out of a KPX 250? So lots of stuff had to come off, which also gives us access to the shock. We may be able to actually adjust it right here on the fly, which is great. But at the same time, we're gonna go ahead and check the airbox while we're here. All right, I really didn't expect that to be clean. That's about 3,000 miles, probably 2,000 of it off-road. And it's pretty spotless. I'll take it out and measure it in. Meet your air filter. Let's see what it looks like on the other side. If I can get it out.
Still not horrible.
Looks good to me. Airbox is pretty clean, all things considered, what we put it through. Whatever masochist at Lifan decided to put screws on this side and the bottom there. You can't access this thing without pulling the airbox. If you find a way, let me know, but we literally had to pull it apart and out of the bike to get to those 2 screws. All right, Harley shock adjustment tool. We're going to tighten, we've got it there. I want to go a lot more. We got a lot of thread, so the threads you can see end right here. So we're going to move this down, tighten up these coils, and hopefully tighten up the rear of this thing. So that's 3 revolutions.
Yeah, that's third
Go
one.
on. That's good. You can start again. All right. That wore me out. So we did about 4.8. We couldn't quite get 5. That's the space we've moved it down, which compress these more. Thing got really tight towards the end, so hoping that made a difference. So now I'm just going to lock the lock nut in place. Give it maybe a quarter turn once it's metal on metal. All right, shock adjusted. Back to the other side. We are going to find the master link on the stock chain and go ahead and pop it off, if we can. So this is new chain to stock chain. So you can already see if we keep the links in line, then by the time we get like 10 links down, this one is already stretched out. And we basically have an extra link by the time we get down here. So that's the reason these stock chains kind of suck. So what we're looking for now is relatively the same number of links. And I might go one over, might not, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, you want to count this one? I'll count. All right, so all things equal, we counted at every little tooth, right? 1, 1, 2, 2. We got all the way down to here, where Dan counted 108 right here. I'm at 110. So in the same amount of space, the old chain has stretched out 2 extra links. So I should probably go to 108. I may go to 108. I'm gonna go to 108. Screw it. And that should make us pull the adjusters all the way in. It's be a tighter chain. It shouldn't stretch like the old one. Okay. So we have marked 108. So this is our cylinder for 108, right? So we want a chain brake. We get our cheap Amazon chain breaker. We're gonna put it on 108, and we're gonna pop that little pin out, and then that gives us our master link that's gonna match up to where their 108 was right there, except our chain's gonna be a lot shorter, so we have to back our adjusters all the way in. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pop my chain breaker on here. It's totally gonna work right this time. And let's pretend I didn't screw up and do it on 109 before.
Nobody would have known if you hadn't said anything.
So now I'm right there, so this little breaker is gonna line up with that pin. And then you just go to town on it, tighten it, and everything pops and flies in different directions. It's a lot of fun. Boom.
Yes.
Pop it off. Now you have 108. 108 plus a brand new master link. And of course, all the little pins to put it back together on the other end once we put it on the bike. So now we're going to clean it, lube it, and put it on the bike. I just want to take a moment to say, everything here feels like it's built better than all the other China bikes that I've worked with. So like this air intake hose is just solid. It seats really well. It doesn't have a fold in it. The curve is perfect. Everything seems to line up even as we're putting it back together. It's nice to work with a nicer bike. And no, I didn't measure the air filter and it's too late now. I'm not taking it back off. Anybody else watch that KitchenAid mixer guy? Just peeling the grease off of stuff inside of the KitchenAid mixers. That's what I feel like. It's very satisfying. All right, we're pretty far down the rabbit hole. At this point, we have tried to clean everything, and we're putting the rear wheel back on. That sounds great, doesn't it? It's just that sprocket rubbing against that plastic. It's because the wrench is pushing against it. Things to check.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't push on the rear end. So these face backwards. When you put on a new chain, just tighten that stuff all the way up, because we're going to slide this wheel all the way forward. And we're going to loosely tighten this. And then we're going to put the chain on. This brake caliper, again, has this groove it has to sit in. When we first put it on, it was below that. You don't want that. It'd be bad juju. What else? Oh, and the spacer sits like that. Right there. So we fed our chain through. Wow. We fed our chain through, and we've ended with right here with just a little bit adjusted out. Seems like the decent tension there. Could technically maybe take one off, but we're gonna stick at 108. So I'm gonna put the master link in. You go to put your master link on. If it's at the back of the sprocket, it's gonna be facing down. If it's on top, back, it's on bottom, you put it facing forward. That keeps it from popping off due to the torque from the rotation. So, seat of the pants test. This is stock rear suspension, but we've gone the front forks. So the front forks, they're pretty stiff, but the rear, squishy, squishy.
Squishy.
All right. Moving on over. The rear shock, we just tightened up 4.8 rotations.
Did 10 weight on the
rear
front.
Shocks, this is 10 weight. Rear, still squished, but not nearly as much. And I'm trying actually harder over here.
Much actually harder, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the trick. It just preloads it a little. Another seat of the pants again. This is a stock bike. Look at that burrito box almost scraping, even though Dan has no butt.
No butt.
All right, next bike. All right, no butt Dan. It's not getting as close. So it's like that preload. I mean, it's still low. And in fact, tighten up the spring lowers the bike a little.
It's definitely harder to get it to go down. I'm
Yeah.
actually having to...
You're working those legs?
Yeah.
So yeah.